afternoon, good morning, happy new year, happy new you to everybody. And welcome to another in a brand new Race Talk Revolution with Lane in Eugene for this new year. Now, as you know, Race Talk Revolution is a platform where your voice matters. So this is our first broadcast of 2022. And we want to welcome everybody back, knowing that you've had a good year and the year is starting off great. And we want to welcome all of you who are new to Race Talk Revolution. Today, we are so pleased to have two speakers with us today. Those are Mr. Maurice Graham and Mr. Larry O'Connor. They are facilitators with the Let's Grow movement for healing, for racial healing. Together, they lead courageous conversations about race, and they will take us through some of that this afternoon. Now, as always, during our conversation today, we ask that you please remain muted. Now, this is going to be a little bit different, and we're going to be participating in courageous conversations today. And when we also get to the Q&A section, we will instruct you on how to raise your hand. We also want to remind you that Race Talk Revolution is a loving, inclusive platform designed to strip away the false beliefs that keep us separated as a species, uncover the not so hidden truth that we all want the same things in life, and to heal the wounds created by systemic racism. Race Talk Revolution is a safe and brave space for people of all backgrounds to share ideas and opinions and explore the nuances of systemic racism, while at the same time growing together our capacity for effective anti-racist activism. The Race Talk Revolution community is committed to practicing radical, inclusive love. Radical, inclusive love. What this means is that though we may not understand or agree with what's being said, we are committed to listening with respect, appreciation, and empathy. You see, it is our commitment here at Race Talk Revolution that every person be encouraged, heard, and appreciated, because here on Race Talk Revolution with Lane in Eugene, every voice matters. And here's my beautiful co-host, the Reverend Lane Cobb.
Hello, everyone. Happy 2022. Yay. We made it. And today we have quite a treat. This is going to be a wonderful broadcast. We're so happy to have you here. I'm going to just briefly introduce our two speakers today, and then we'll get going. Maurice Graham describes himself as a child of God, a spiritual being having an incarnation as a human being. He is the Black gay son of parents escaping the Jim Crow South who despised the police. Having experienced the childhood traumas of discrimination, isolation, loneliness, fear of abandonment, and betrayal, he became addicted to drugs to cope. Grateful to God for the spirit of desperation that brought him to his knees, and in the spirit of acceptance, he surrendered to the principles of love, which are restoring him to sanity through the very things he thought would be his demise, but became his saving grace. Graham credits his journey of recovery with giving him insight into how life works. He has become an HIV and addiction specialist, addressing his own and others' physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing through his personal experience, letting love be his teacher. Larry O'Connor describes himself as a 68-year-old white guy from the Catholic schools of the Northwest Side of Chicago. His father was a Chicago policeman during the 1968 Democratic Convention, and his mother's side is all from Wisconsin. He is a graduate of the New Warrior Training Adventure, Warrior Monk, and Waking Up to Whiteness offered by the Mankind Project USA. He is a career musician since the age of 10 and now shares his gift with seniors in Denver, Colorado. Gentlemen, welcome to you. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy for you to be here with us. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you do. So,
great to be here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, you're so welcome. So what is the Let's Grow movement, and how did you guys get involved?
Well, the Let's Grow movement actually is a program that challenges us to develop ways of creating courageous conversations. And it employs a program that can give us an idea about how to make that engagement. But it didn't start that way. We started with Larry and I looking at how to develop a workshop for a white man. He asked me to assist him in that process. And what we did was a deep dive into how we got to be where we are. And when Larry came across this program, we saw it as another way of extending the conversation into both communities, and also to include all people of color as well as anyone who was identifying as white. So with that deep dive, we took the summer of 2020 and we watched a lot of videos, documentaries, and when we came across Let's Grow movement, we thought this was a perfect match to help extend conversations about courageous conversations on race. So I understand that it's impossible for a person who is white and having experienced only a white community to get to the information that's necessary. So we discussed most of the material that we include as reference materials together with our own personal perspectives. And it really gave both of us an opportunity to see who we really are as a member of races that may not have had an understanding about the nuances and the cultures that we are experiencing. So that's what I would say. Larry, what would you add to that?
You're on mute.
I thought it was really surprising that Maurice and I met at a Centers for Spiritual Living Sunday night meeting that takes place based out of Denver. And so we became friends through that. When I saw that picture of George Floyd and David Chauvin kneeling on him, that was that was just a worldview breakdown moment for me. I needed to rethink everything, and that's how that was the impetus. That was the issue. It affected me personally. It upended my paradigm. It confirmed many of my suspicions, and it required a restructuring of what the world looks like, because apparently the emperor white people have no clothes, and everybody knows about it except us. And I'll leave it at that. So continue here.
So in doing this work, what has your experience, how can I put this? What has your experience been in terms of challenges and triumphs?
I would say the first thing that I found was that a courageous conversation worked best when the discussion was balanced and safe. The second thing I would say is our focus was to get people to talk about injustices and inequities, to find solutions, but it must be with people who are willing to do the work. And willing to do the work means that we are able to investigate how we actually got to be where we are. I would consider the conversations that Larry and I had in finding a balance. Because we came from a science of mind background, men's group, we had some things in common already. And as we discussed some of the things, some of the differences that we identified, we realized we were both from Chicago. His father was a Chicago policeman, and that I've had some contact with the police myself, as well as my parents, and most of the people that I know in the community. The Chicago police, during the time that I grew up there, I was 25 when I left Chicago. I'm 69 now. And the Chicago police were very corrupt at that point in time. You know, so it was a eye-opening experience, and we felt quite serendipitous for us to come together in Denver at a men's group. And so that was the beginning of the experiences. The challenge also, well, one of the triumphs that we experienced was knowing that it was possible for us to sit down, have this conversation, and then extend that conversation through Let's Grow. And what an experience that was. We probably did 8 or 9 presentations, and some of those presentations actually extended into multiple presentations because the two groups were interested. And when I say balanced, I mean between Black and white people, or Black and people of color. And it was a wonderful experience to hear how we could, in fact, work together. And so that was the triumph of the experience. When it wasn't balanced, what we noticed when it wasn't balanced is that the conversation became one-sided, and we began to look at the differences more than the similarities.
Mm.
And I would just echo that in that regard. What my experience was is that when if there's not enough Black people on this call, white people revert to the white privilege conversation unconsciously in an attempt to have the conversation. All they know how to reach for is this thing, this white privilege paradigm. We're going to digress in a moment to watch this movie, Let's Grow. It's 16 minutes long. And this is what we do. We show this movie to people, and then we have a discussion. They call them courageous conversations. And so some of you have seen this movie already. So we're just going to use this to get in the mood here and plug right in, and afterwards we'll have ourselves a courageous conversation.
So could I also let people know that this is an emotional view, okay? So I just want to prepare you for people who have not seen this movie. It is, it's emotional, but we're in a safe space. So enjoy. Eugene, go ahead.
Are you guys seeing and hearing it?
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
Yes.
Dear white sisters and brothers, committed to discover the truth, consider this a public service announcement, curated, cultivated, and created just for you. If you're willing to be inconvenienced with the facts, be disrupted by the visual acts, and uncomfortable with where America is still at, face your own limiting beliefs, have hard conversations that pull the veil back and acknowledge that world justice for all has never been intact. If you're willing, great. But beware, this journey may be painful, filled with some hurt and even a bit of shame. Watch out. You might even be tempted to play the blame game, because it's easier to stay ignorant, divided, angry, and apart. But what if we confronted the truth within our hearts? Courageous cultural conversations. Wow, that's a new art. There's a way that we can connect, but we have to use our words. Allow our hearts to speak, but know that this might hurt. The solution's right here. I know that to be so. You are. I am. We're here. Let's grow.
Black lives matter. That's all chit chatter. Y'all just want to fight. The real truth is all lives matter. And I won't apologize for being white. I mean, black lives don't even matter to you, or else you'd stop killing them yourself. Most blacks are killed by blacks. Y'all don't even need the cops to help. And you say it's systemic. Yeah, they were treated bad, but that was what, 400 some years ago. I didn't kill anybody. But you think my white skin still makes me guilty though. I'm sick of you calling me racist. I don't even see color, we're all the same. You're the only racist here, always looking for a skin tone to blame. More white people are killed by police each year. Check the stats, man, I'm speaking facts. But we don't riot, kill cops, burn down buildings, or any other of these animal acts.
Yeah, all lives matter. Yeah, they do. But for all lives to matter, that has to include me and you, because if black lives don't matter, all lives can't.
Oopsie. Eugene, can we advance that?
Consider this a public journey, may be painful. That's a
Truth is, all lives matter. And I won't apologize for being white. I mean, black lives don't even matter to you, or else you'd stop killing them yourself. Most blacks are killed by blacks. Y'all don't even need the cops to help. And you say it's systemic. Yeah, they were treated bad, but that was what, 400 some years ago. I didn't kill anybody. But you think my white skin still makes me guilty though. I'm sick of you calling me racist. I don't even see color, we're all the same. You're the only racist here, always looking for a skin tone to blame. More white people are killed by police each year. Check the stats, man, I'm speaking facts. But we don't riot, kill cops, burn down buildings, or any other of these animal acts.
Yeah, all lives matter. Yeah, they do. But for all lives to matter, that has to include me and you, because if black lives don't matter, all lives can't matter, dude. And your stats are BS, but I'll get to that a little bit later too. Look, see, white folks have been running things since before colonization. Let's think Michelangelo. Because in 1477, there was only white people painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And the world has been pushed to worship white since before the Renaissance, because the only way that Jesus was white was if he had 120 SPF on. Because you're happy to watch Denzel and glorify LeBron James, and you'd love to get a selfie with Morgan Freeman because he's got fame. But what if it were me? Pulled over, beaten and kicked, dragged to the ground, pepper sprayed at night stick. What if it were me? Might as well be the whip, 17 rounds in a Glock clip. I shouldn't be terrified for my life, because I'm not recognizable like Will Smith.
When I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not saying that brown and white lives don't. I'm a mother. If my son gets pulled over, I just want him to be just as safe as your son. That's all I want. Your life matters. Yes, it does. But did you really need to hear me say it? Honestly, I didn't have to. Because our different neighborhoods, educational system, justice system, and all of history has shown you that this is true. This is not a competition of whose life matters the most. This is a call for you, my sister, my brother, to stand up for all lives, but stand up close. Enough of the shrinking thinking like modern day racism isn't real, and evict the stinking thinking that anger is all I feel. and challenge the sinking thinking that this will all be over soon. It's no big deal.
America is the land of opportunity. You have every chance to succeed. There's black colleges. Man, you had a black president. What more do you really need? And what do you want, a handout? Trump already set a record for your unemployment rate. How about you be grateful and say thank you, instead of creating all the racial hate?
Being white in America is a fast track to excellence. Having a white name on a resume is a 50% increase in job acceptance.
And there it is. White privilege. The black man's sorry excuse. Give me a break, man. There's no such thing. I worked my ass off to get in these shoes, but you don't see me demanding reparations for all the shit that I went through. My success is because of the content of my character, not the color of my skin. Once you stop making excuses, boy, maybe you just don't
Who do you
wanna
think
win.
you're calling boy? To be black in America means trapped into a system of lower education. Impoverished ghetto communities that date all the way back to the enslaved nation. You see, Negroes were considered dangerous and untrustworthy according to white elite generations. And the police force was originally created to control free Negro slaves, keep them boys in place, show them animals how to behave.
You're always talking about how you're so oppressed. You wouldn't be killed by cops if you learned how to stop resisting arrest.
Studies show that black men have a 250% higher chance of being killed by cops than men that are white, and a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by police in their life. 65% of Caucasians graduate college, while only 40% of African Americans acquire higher knowledge. 75% of movie stars are Caucasian, while only 13% are African American. So for over 100 years, Hollywood has been showing the world what it means to be American. You don't believe me? You don't trust me? You don't need my eyes to see. Open up your eyes. Read.
This is the anguish and anger of my ancestors. Their exhaustion runs through my veins. I'm tired for my great-grandmother's journey. I'm angry for my granddaddy's pain. This anger isn't new. I've hid it from you for years. Oh, I smile when you pass to accommodate what you can handle. But at night, I cry their tears. And under the anger is the pain of constant rejection waiting to be healed. And under the pain is the fear for our children waiting to be stilled. And under the fear lives the hope waiting to be restored. And then there's the soul of ours and our ancestors refusing to be ignored. You inherit access, accomplishments, wealth, and peace of mind running through your veins, while we inherited trauma, shame, your Bible, and someone else's name. And then we had to discover faith and prayer just to navigate through the generational unresolved pain. There's layers to this volcano. So don't just see the lava and run. We're having never before conversations. Beautiful healing has already begun. I know white privilege might be disruptive at your core, because the truth that you held dear, all men are created equal, just can't be your truth anymore. We're your brown sisters and brothers. And now you've got just a glimpse of the polar despair. So if it feels a little uncomfortable right now, let's just say it's because you just got crystal clear. I know that we can connect, but we have to use our words. Allow our hearts to speak. But know that this might hurt. The solution is right here. I know that to be so. You are, I am. We're here. Let's grow.
African slaves were insured and mortgaged as property. The most valuable were bought and sold for $1,300. Black people were unable to legally use white bathrooms, drinking fountains, and restaurants. until 1954. Interracial marriage was illegal until 1967. Black people were arrested for falling in love with white people. A study revealed that half of white medical trainees believe black people feel less pain than white people. In 2016, there's been over 4,000 black lynchings where they were burned alive, skinned, dismembered, or hung from trees, often left for days for their children, sisters, and wives to see. And these killings were public displays attended by thousands. And while they were still alive, victims frequently had their ears, fingers, and genitals cut off. The body parts became souvenirs displayed on keychains and mantles. The majority of African Americans are their descendants.
This isn't just about George Floyd. It's a global movement, right? Because every first world colonialized nation has an infrastructure of white might. But to the point that even I'm programmed to believe that dark-skinned black men are scary at night. And I can't be a movie star unless my skin is stark white, and I can't trust the man's intellect if his skin is dark as night. Look me in my face and tell me how this is all right. Does the pain in my eyes tell you that I'm not being truthful? That I'm tired of being treated as less than and never gotten a real spoonful? That it hurts to be treated as less than a human being, and I know it's not your fault. You're just like me. Another programmed human being. So I ask you to look beyond what you've been seeing. Because sometimes to grow and heal, we have to look deeper. We have to look deeper to find the real meaning.
I've never walked an honest mile inside your shoes, and I'll never truly comprehend the trauma you've been through. And I've never been on the outside of equality looking in, and I've never had to overcome the color of my skin. And my race has never made me question whether I belong. So it's time for me to stand up and help to right the wrongs. Because the stories I've been sold have kept your truth a mystery. With all that I know now, I'll choose to be on the right side of history. As long as it's me versus you, we'll never heal this racial friction. I got no clue what it'll look like. But brother, I'm ready and willing to listen.
I know your frustration. That's something that we share. Feel it. Own it. But don't take out real estate there. Let's move from anguish to action. And never let our movement cease. For our children, we're sculpting a future masterpiece. I see your heart. And now you get to live with an entirely new intent. Will you sign up for the long haul, brother? Because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Muster up your moral courage. Allow this new truth to be shown. You might have to risk some comfort, but you won't have to do it alone. There's a way that we can connect. But we have to use our words.
Allow our hearts to speak.
And know that this might hurt.
The solutions are right here. I know that to be so.
You are.
I am.
We're here. Let's grow.
Thank you for joining us in this courageous cultural conversation. If this stirred your soul, piqued an interest, or validate what you knew to be possible, I'd like to invite you to subscribe or leave your information, sign up for more courageous cultural conversations coming up in the future, or for the opportunity for us to come and speak and have these conversations with your organization, or for you to learn how to facilitate these amazing, overdue conversations yourself. No matter what you choose, remember that I'm your sister in prosperity and in possibility. And when I say that I believe in you and I love you, it's because I do. Let's grow.
Powerful movie. So what we'd like to do is to have a brief conversation about the movie itself and its intention, which is to create a courageous conversation. And what they really wanted to do was to teach people how to use the program to extend to community-based organizations, family, friends, and give you the guideline. So we have that information available to you. And when you connect to it via Facebook, you'll see exactly how the plan has been laid out. But to leave this conversation, we just maybe 30 minutes of conversation about the movie. I want to start out with the question, what did you find the most difficult to hear in this movie? And our goal, by the way, is to get to the inequities. How do we deal with the inequities? But first, we have to have a conversation. We have to sit down at the same tables. We have to connect with people of color. We have to look at how history, and I think that's one of the most important things that I learned during this process, that I knew very little about my own history. And in the conversations that Larry and I had, we discovered new information at every turn. So that's the work that has to be done that was mentioned in the video. And we believe that that's probably the only place, because we're living in two different Americas. And we really need to recognize where we are and how we can actually work together. And Larry and I are an example of just how that is possible. We did it with each other, and then we extended it through the Let's Grow program into our communities, both of our communities, and we both were blessed by the experience. So I know this is an emotional experience, and this is a safe place. We're not trying to be PC. So
Right.
Speak your truth. That is the only way that we can resolve some of the issues that exist between us.
And I'm going to step in real quick, Maurice. Most of you who have been with Race Talk Revolution know how to raise your hand. Now, this is going to be a little bit different, because you may feel the need just to go ahead and speak out and ask or answer the question. So you won't raise your hand, but still, if you can use that function. And again, that's under the right-hand side, lower right-hand side under reactions. Click on the reaction, then click the button raise hand. And with that, if you can repeat that first question, please.
What did you find most difficult to hear?
Now, Maurice, let me also interrupt. Now, Larry, you sent me, I put in the chat the link to the Facebook page and the PDF files. Are you also intending for me to actually include the link to the actual movie, including the passcode, or is that something different? I put in the Facebook page link.
what we'll do is at the end, we'll get into the logistics.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. I'm also going to suggest that folks give their full attention to the conversation and try to stay out of the chat for a little bit during this portion of our broadcast. Give these folks your.
Yeah, and Lane and Eugene, since you know all the names and faces, I'd please feel free to moderate, facilitate the folks as they raise their hands.
Okay, great.
And one final question, Michelle wants to know, what do you mean by difficult in terms of what was the most difficult?
Well, what was something that actually triggered an emotional response? And what was that response? That's what we mean.
All righty. Sheila, we have Sheila and then Neil.
Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Maurice. I'm so happy to see you, my brother. You know, this is my second time viewing this. And when Lisa started talking about both the pain and the rage of her ancestors, I noticed I started to fidget. And I said, and then I told myself, oh, this is what I do. I mean, when I see other people do this, I go, oh, they're fidgeting because they're triggered. And I just, you know, I talk myself because I was doing what I have noticed other people do, you know, like the increase of the chatting and, you know, things people do when they're, but here I was doing it. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And so I just had a little internal conversation, and I know I'm reading the 1619 Project right now. And there is just a passage in that I know I've probably read or known before, but for some reason it just grabbed me. And that's the whole idea of New Year's Day being the day that enslaved people were like on sale, you know, and there was, you know, a lot of renting going on, renting of enslaved people and selling and ripping children from mothers. And that passage has just really been with me. And I've just felt a lot of grief around it. So when Lisa was talking about the grief and the pain, I connected, and it did trigger me. And I paid attention to the fact that I tried to, you know, I looked at my phone, and it was just hard to feel that. And that pain, I mean, when we really, I'll speak for myself as an African American, when I really, how can I say, when I really connect to the brutality and the horror of enslavement, it's almost overwhelming. You know, one part of me, I feel such a debt to my ancestors to survive, because the fact that I'm here, that means that I have ancestors that survived the Middle Passage. They survived seasoning in the Caribbean. They survived, you know, they survived all of that. And I owe such a debt. I owe such a tremendous debt. So anyway, that's how I was triggered. And again, it's so good to see you, Maurice and Larry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila.
We have Neil and then Judith and then Seja. Neil?
Yep, thank you. For me, the most difficult to hear was the initial anger and ignorance of the white man. Lisa's pieces throughout the video literally brought me to tears. And the most moving part was, for me, when the white man started to see what I think of as reality, and that there was hope of reconciliation, or at least understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Yes, good afternoon. I am very moved. This is the second time I've seen it. I'm very moved by that
Judith,
realization.
Can you
Judith,
hear me?
yeah, Judith, real fast. Is it possible for you to come on camera? It'd be great to see your face.
Really? Okay, let me. All right, hold on one moment. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's taking a little time. All right, so I had a machine running in the room, so I walked out to the hallway. All right, so come on, camera. Okay. Uh-oh.
Thank you so
Yes.
very much. Thank
Greetings,
you.
everyone.
Thank
So,
you.
this is my second time seeing this video. I'm very moved by it each time. What particularly stands out for me is the statement about you don't even believe Black Lives Matter, that we actually are committing crimes and killing each other. So that just grabs me in a place. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And I would love to know how we present this video and get into action in communities where we have this going on as our reality, as our facts, not our reality, our facts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At the end, we'll provide some information so that you can connect to the Let's Grow movement. Mhm.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We have Seja, Adine, and then Vicky.
Well, the words that made me discomfortable or uncomfortable, excuse me, had to do with waiting a while towards the end of the film, and before I heard it acknowledged that both of us, white and black, have been brought up with absence of information, absence of awareness of our histories and why we're doing what we're doing. I was relieved to hear that that was understood. And I've encountered that situation where I extended my hand to someone early on and it was refused because I don't know specifically, but I assume the assumption was I had to earn it. I really had to earn it. That this was 100% white people's work and this person did not want to contribute. And yet the only thing that worked for us finally was kindness. And we just repeated kindness, 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 and spending time in the same space. Until I guess maybe the intentions of the heart came through. So I think honesty works. I was also a little uncomfortable with thinking that it's only primarily in faith-based communities that this can be most effective, because I like heart-based communities myself. So I felt a little uncomfortable with that too.
There's a quote from a brother named Emmanuel Acho, who does a courageous conversation with a Black man, and you can find him on YouTube. But the quote is, "Nobody cares what you have to say until they know that you care."
Yeah.
And what has to be addressed is that heart-to-heart communication. And once that connection is made, then there's progress that can be made. You know, that seems to be the pattern that I've noticed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Adine, Vicky, and then Ann White.
All right. Thank you, Maurice and Larry. Thank you so very much for this presentation. Two things stood out for me. My intense anger at the white man who was expressing ideas which are far too current in far too many white people today. It's, and it's not just Trump Republicans. These attitudes are also found in Democrats who consider themselves fair and equitable. The second point was that we as African Americans have to do a better job of educating ourselves and educating our children, and not being afraid to tell our children the ugly truths, and stop wasting so much of our energy trying to almost act white. And give up our own truths just to get along in the white community. Those are my feelings.
That is a wonderful point to make, because the truth is, my parents did not give me any information about the experience that they had growing up in the Jim Crow South. It was either too painful, or they found it unnecessary in today's society to bring that information to me. But I would challenge my ancestors to give me details about the experience. My parents were born in 25 and 26. So just before the great crash. And so there was a lot of poverty, at that time. And my mother's family was 11 children. And my grandfather had to steal away his family to the north, and they ended up in Chicago, a little bit at a time, because the sharecropper did not want to let them go. So I see your point. I feel you, and understand that, until we can tell the truth to ourselves. I learned so much from doing this deep dive. Nothing that I had ever seen or heard in public schools, not even in the college that I attended. I got a degree in education, and even in education, there were things that I had to unlearn actually to do this work.
Yeah. Thank you, Maurice and the Dean. Just real fast, I was watching something a couple of weeks ago, and there was a line that came out about being the acceptable Negro, and that hit me so deeply that I had to put the program on pause and then sat there and cried, because that's what I was taught, to be the acceptable Negro, speak the right way. And, it was like, wow, so the miseducation, not only of, African Americans and Black people, but the miseducation of the nation. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We have Vicky, Ann, and then Judith.
Wow, I'm a good one to follow those comments as an educator, but I also want to thank Adine for her comments. One that hit me in the movie also was that this is not in the past. So I grew up in Iowa, and I was in the movie, I was really tuned into the part where the white guy was ranting about Black Lives Matter, because I had to face that many times with relatives. And so I was really curious. It's like, okay, I got to take notes, because I want to know how to counter that. I want to know how to be a better ally. And I just finished reading Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. And it's interesting, Eugene, what you just said about, how you get enculturated to be nice, because she talked a lot about how she was also as a white person, that you don't share your feelings, you don't speak up about anything controversial, you've got to be nice in public. And I moved here to Western Mass from the Midwest, and it really hit me that this New England nice was even stronger than what I got in the Midwest. That is part of the school committee now, and a retired educator, I get what you're saying about we got to change what we do in schools. So I'm looking forward to being more involved with Let's Move, so I can learn more about how to be a better ally. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vicky.
And that's exactly what we need. We need people who are willing to do the education and educate others in the process, and also to use white privilege in a way that helps us address the inequities, and the injustices that we are experiencing systemically. So thank you for those comments.
We have Ann White, Judith, and then I have Michael. Carmen.
Yes, I watched this film for the second time through and again cried. I'm engaged in being trained in restorative justice practices, and my initial training was with a group of about 25 people, with approximately 20 of them people of color. And I was really grateful for that. We watched a film about a group of young people who were offered restorative justice and to see how it worked. And at the end of the film, one of the African Americans in the room just exploded and said, they were all white and they were offered restorative justice. Do you think that if they were Black, they would have been offered that? And it was hearing that, and really hearing that from the depth, pain, and anguish. This film does something similar, but being in person with people expressing that honestly was enormously painful. And as a white person, I really recommend that people pick a particular place to engage, to begin having these conversations. And I thank you so much for this program.
Thank you, Anne. I learned during the process that white people were given reparations when slavery ended. I was shocked to find that out.
Yeah. Whew. I know that there are other people, who have the hands up to answer this first question. And what I want to do though, Maurice, is if we can go to the second question, and all of you who have your hands up right now, just keep your hands up and be prepared to answer this next question. Okay, cool.
Larry, would you give us the next question?
You're on mute, Larry.
This is where we were undecided. The questions, we actually had three of which you'd pick two. The questions are, what two desires came up for you? What did you learn through the film that you were unaware of before? And what truth did you find the most difficult to accept? So you can take any of those, because the object of the game is just what we're doing now, which is opening up this path to the heart here. So
cool.
What desires came up? What were you unaware of before the film? What was most difficult to accept? I think we covered that one.
Yeah. We have our dear friend Judith, and we have Michael, then we have Michelle Brown.
Oh wow. I mean, I was just all ready to get deep into that first one. And that's okay. I will go along with the change of the game here, because and I also want to share what I truly desire. What I truly desire is to be able to bring this film to Greenberg Town Hall during African American History Month in February, because see, what I think is really healthy about what Race Talk has brought us to is to feel safe in having these discussions and having these dialogues, and to increase the number of people who are willing to become consciously aware of the history of atrocities suffered and endured by African-American people in this country, the history of pain, the history of suffering, and the history of guilt, as well as psychoses that go along with the history of those individuals who inflicted this kind of injustice and pain on other people, because it takes stepping outside of the boundaries of sanity to do some of the things that were done to African Americans, particularly on the plantation during the period of enslavement and over the past 400 years. It takes stepping outside of the boundaries of sanity to do some of the things, to inflict some of the atrocities that were inflicted, to dehumanize people, to treat them as if they were chattel. That's stepping outside of the realm of sanity to dehumanize other people. So this, we are, how can I say this? You know, I just remember as a child growing up in an integrated elementary and high school, oftentimes as a child, we would walk down the halls holding hands. And it didn't matter what color the child was, whose hand you were holding. We were walking down the hall oftentimes to an unknown place, to the auditorium, to see something that was unknown or unfamiliar to us, a play or a movie, or to hear someone speak. We were walking down the hall together, holding hands into an unknown place. And that's what this gives us the opportunity to do. Walk down a path together into an unknown place of learning, of dissecting, of looking at the facts, because only through dealing with the facts of our history will we be able to heal. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. You know, one of the things that I discovered too was through the perception that money is more powerful than humanity. Because of this paradigm that we live in, where profit is more important than people, we experience two different worlds. And it's the world that is driving us through consumption to the edge, as opposed to the conversation that we need to have about our humanity. And that's one of the things that we try to address, you know, through these courageous conversations, looking at how we can connect to heart, because that is the only way we'll be able to bridge that gap. And I know that the systematic racism that exists in our world today is something that was created out of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was responsible for delineating the races, how much white blood was enough to be declared white, and then how much people of color blood created what we now really have as a caste system here in the United States and in many parts of the world. The darker you are, the more difficult it is for you to maneuver through life circumstances and situations. And that is something that still exists within our society. And it even works against white people who are interested in addressing that issue. It even pulls the white people that are interested back into what would be considered your place, you know. So thank you for that comment.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Michael Carmen, then Michelle Brown, and then Amy Nathan.
Thank you so much for this video. I'm going to say the thing that I was going to say because it applies to almost all the questions. And it's just that as the video started, and like everyone, I felt very moved. I feel that I know a lot of these things. I'm trying to learn more. I'm reading like crazy, trying to see what's going on. And I've been reading Black writers and Black autobiographies, Black slave narratives, as much as I can. So I wasn't unaware, but what really grabbed me, and this applies to all your questions, was at the very end when Lisa says, "I love you," and the hand that reaches out is a Black hand. I almost can't understand how the first hand to reach out is a Black hand after all Black people have been through. That's it.
Thank you so much, Michael. That is a powerful realization. And, you know, we say that it's white people's work to do, but we continue to experience the consequences of that work not being done. And so whenever a person reaches out, a white person reaches out, I would always respond with, if you're honestly interested in getting information, I'm willing to help you do that, you know, because you can't know what you don't know. Thank you for that comment.
Yeah, thank you so very much. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is that Michelle Brown? And I hope I'm doing that. And also, if you can bring yourself off camera, put yourself on camera, that'd be great.
I cannot put myself on camera because of my location.
Okay.
I apologize for that. And it's Michelle, and thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And what Michael and Maurice touched upon was the part that I wanted to convey about accepting this whole video, because the analogy is to convince and cultivate a relationship to bring this white man to an understanding of his humanity. And it appears most often that it's Black people that are compassionate, tolerant, to cultivate this understanding in white people. And I liked what Maurice said about, if you truly want to understand, I'm willing to participate. Not all relationships and not all not knowing in white people, for me, is not something I want to invest in, right? Because as you saw, it was a 14-minute video. It takes time to cultivate the understanding in white people of humanity. And 14 minutes was a great short way, but you know, a lot of times it takes a long periods of time, and the effort and emotion and compassion and patience and tolerance and love is mostly on the shoulders of Black people who've had all those things I just listed attempted to be beaten out of them, right? But we still have that. And so for me, accepting the role of cultivating and understanding with white people, for me, on an individual level, not on a class-based level, or a training or lesson-based level. It has to be a relationship that I'm invested in, because it takes time. energy, emotion, to do the work on an individual level with white people that are not tapped into humanity. Because for me, it's just humanity, right? And I know we can read about it and we can talk about it and we can show up for it. And the reason why systemically this continues of the oppression and the oppressor is because most people that are in power, honestly, are white, and they are continuing the very important work, which is the legacy of their history to be the oppressor. So it is important that we learn our history. For Black people to step out of the shackled legacy of being submissive and good and amenable to survive. And it is really important for white people to understand their history of, inflicting very horrific actions upon Black people. So I think it is important. And I think this is a really great space and a safe space. And I'm grateful for you, Blaine and Eugene, for taking on this courageous work. So thank you.
Michelle, thank you so very much. Larry or Maurice, you want to comment to that?
Well, I just want to say one of the places that I found a great deal of information was a documentary called Exterminate All the Brutes by Raoul Peck. He is a Haitian national, and he is one of the people that has been most impactful in my education process around what's happening in the world with Black people. He did a documentary on Patrice Lumumba as well. And he also, the documentary on James Baldwin, I'm Not Your Negro.
Yeah.
It's also Raoul Peck. And so he's played an important role in global history in looking at how different people have seen this experience we're having and the perspective that is generated as a result of the knowledge that comes from our history. So Exterminate All the Brutes is one that I would highly recommend. And another one, which may sound a little out of line with this, but I think it is actually, it would be a good idea to get a background on, is another documentary called Social Dilemma. Some of you may have seen it already, but it talks about how the social media has been used to divide us and to force us into warring communities against each other. And even if you don't use social media yourself, everybody else is, or most people are. And so the effect is indirect as opposed to a direct impact by social media.
I just want to
yes, Larry.
Just interject here. We are now at about 20 minutes before our cutoff time. And what we had planned to do was to ask the audience questions and provide some feedback for them about this whole process and how they could do it. But I'd really like to get everybody who's still got their hand up to get their say in. So I'm willing to cut some of the Q&A time if we can squeeze these folks in.
Okay.
Maurice, what do you say?
Fine with me.
All righty.
Okay.
Good. So
We've
we'll
got
have
Amy. Yeah,
hang on, we'll have Ann Watts being last. So we have Amy, Tyrone, and then Jack.
And we got Lenore Lupi.
I got it, Larry. I got it.
Well, actually, I'm providing a segue in for what Larry was just saying. That what was surprising to me was that this organization exists. Was not aware of it. Let's Grow, and that if there are programs that you all have available for people to engage in, I'd like to have the details on that, and I'd like to know also whether you've been doing this with young people in schools.
We have not, Larry and I have not personally, but as the program is designed, it's designed to take it into your own personal communities, as with you as the facilitator. That's how the program was designed in the first place.
Consider this analogy. Louis Pasteur could tell all the people in the world that there's these tiny little bugs and they'll make you sick. Nobody was going to believe that, but he taught everybody to wash their hands, and death was during operations was decreased exponentially. This is a way to wash your hands we can pass around. This is some soap. So it's a tool unit of change that anybody can use. And we'll get into that more. Okay, continue, please.
So we have Tyrone, Jack, and then we have Lenore, and then Ann will be the last one. Tyrone, Jack, and Lenore, then Ann.
Brother Maurice, Larry, how you guys doing?
Hey, Brother Tyrone, how are you today?
Doing great. Maurice and I went to college together. That's my man. And I'm so grateful to you, Eugene, and to you, Lane, for having these brothers on. Two desires I have. One is that everyone on this call step up and share this with a group of people. That takes courage to do that. You may not think you have all the tools, but I'm sure Larry and Maurice are happy to supply you with some tools and some insights on how to do that. But don't shrink away from it, because this is where you can, people was talking about do the work. This is a do the work opportunity. You can do that. That's one. The other desire I have is that for all of my white brothers and sisters on the call, feel the guilt. Don't run away from it. Feel the guilt, but don't take out real estate, as Lisa said. Right? I think that's really important, because the guilt can transmute itself into a level of action that is so deep as a commitment that you can work your way through when someone looks at you out the side of their eyes, like, what the hell are you talking about? So be courageous. But I do have a question for Larry. And very quickly, Larry, I know your dad was a police officer. How was this experience for you, knowing that you grew up with that mentality of a police officer? I don't know if he considered himself a warrior or guardian, but I just wanted to ask you to take a minute and help me share a little bit of that.
Okay. It's difficult because I'm also a musician who grew up in the 60s, as well as the son of a father who was in the Democratic Convention. So in the words of the Jefferson Airplane, when the truth is found to be lies and all the joy within you dies, don't you want somebody to love? It was cathartic to experience, and we'll talk, Tyrone. We'll get into that one on our own a little some more later, okay? Because we're pressed. Thanks, man. Jack, you're muted.
Yeah, thanks. Just getting unmuted. I'll just try to make it quick. What I hope that I can continue to do, and what I want to invite everybody else to do, is not only, build up some historical awareness, but take time to do the empathic dive into what those experiences must have been like. Because we can do that in our imagination and in our natural capacity for empathy. We can do that, and it's pretty scary. And I'd like to pick up also on what Sheila said. And another thing that we can do is that we can just think about individual African-American people that we personally know, and we can pause and be grateful to their ancestors for bringing them into our lives now. And I'm complete with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. That is so important. I think one of the things that I discovered during this process too is the fact that empathy comes through intuition. You know, we think we're 5 sensory beings, but we're really 6 sensory beings. And sometimes we don't connect with that spiritual part that talks to us and gives us, when we make the commitment to look at the truth about this human incarnation, it brings us back to the truth of who we really are, the child of God that each one of us is at this meeting and throughout the world.
Thank you, Maurice. Whew, man, good stuff. Lenore?
Hi, thanks. I agree with the what struck me most in the film, or what moved me most, was the anger of the Black man. The emotion that it evoked in me was like cowering away and feeling shameful, like when my dad yelled at me as a child and I didn't want to displease my dad. And that scares me a little bit because I don't want to feel like I have to walk on eggshells if I want to have open talk and exchange of views. And while I understand the anger, I also do feel more moved to try to do things today. So I fear that the anger, although understandably genuine, inhibits the talk because it made me feel like that little girl cowering. That's it. Thank you.
And so it sounds like you had trauma as a result of what you may have experienced with your parents. That's a form of abuse when, from my perspective. And I've had that experience before, not only with my parents as well, but also with white people in corporate America. And what it did was it traumatized me to the point where I left corporate America and started my own nonprofit, educational nonprofit. And I've been operating that nonprofit for the last 20 years. And our purpose is to help children. We do work with the high schools in our local area. And we've taken it on the road and gone to Africa and Europe as well. But it's to help kids navigate the critical thinking that's necessary to make good decisions today. We focused on health initially, but it's really about making critical decisions about life. You know, and we used health as an example to do that. But what I also know about this audience is that you also know ways of having critical conversations. And I would love it if you could put those things in the chat that describe ways. I want to give you a couple too at the end after everybody has shared, but you know other ways that have been successful in having critical conversations. This is just one way. And so I'm knowing that there are unlimited possibilities that are available to us, and those possibilities also exist right here in this chat.
Thank you. Lenore, thank you so very much. Ann Watts will be the last question, so I apologize to Eddie and Hulda and Abe because of time. Ann.
Oh, I'm so deeply moved, and Lane and Eugene and Maurice and Larry, I'm so grateful that you are providing the platforms that you're providing. It was so hard to hear the white man spewing his rage and his ignorance. But I have to say, he was one of the few that feels that way, who's willing to be in the conversation. He showed up for the conversation. And so he could learn something new. And what really is hard for me is how few people will show up for the conversation, white people. And so, like I have a rage that things don't change. It keeps going on, it keeps going on, it keeps going on because people will not join the conversation. What do I want? I want people to join the conversation. I want this film to be seen by everybody. I want more people of color in my life. I did a vision board on January 31st, and there were several Black faces on that board because that's what I want in my life. And so I have to find a way to create that for myself. Anyway, thank you. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate what you're bringing to us all.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you for being one of our Race Talk Revolution members and family members from day one.
Okay. I want to make sure that you get your prizes. I sent 2 files to Lane, and they are the links to all of the videos that Maurice and I watched. And another link is, or another one is an Excel spreadsheet of Black Lives Matter resources. And that is beautifully formatted. And I've got to give credit to my warrior brothers who did that work. But that it's to be shared. So there's that. Second thing is we'll have this, the link to the Facebook page. This movie, all you have to do is you log in, you pay $5 to help defray the cost of the production, and then you throw a party just like this is. That's all there is to it. And they have instructions for how to, prepare for it and what stuff might happen. And I made a summary of that. If you're interested, you can ping back to me for assistance on that. Maurice and I discovered this little tool, these people who made this little tool to spread around like a virus. And it's a good virus. Okay. So that is everything I needed and wanted to say. Maurice, do you have anything else to add?
I do. I wanted to point to something that I mentioned earlier, and that's The Uncomfortable Conversation with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho. And he is a Nigerian who grew up in Nigeria and in the United States and has a very positive perspective on this conversation that we're having about race. And he talks to a number of very influential and important people during that process. And one, Reverend Lutz, I believe his name is, was one of the people that he had a conversation with, and it was most revealing. And the other is that I saw a play recently by a young man, LaShawn Darnell Holcomb. He's the founding artistic director at a theater company called Griot Theater Company. And he is one who has figured out how to engage a white audience. What he did was he created a play that focused on the differences between two communities in Marin, Sausalito and Marin City, and the redlining that took place back in the 30s and 40s, and how that affected those two communities, and especially when there was an interracial relationship and navigating the community during that experience. His name again is LaShawn Holcomb, and it's www.griottheatercompany.org. And he used the children that were part of this play to do their own educational research around what things looked like. And the majority of the children were white. And so they got an opportunity to see from a perspective through their own process of education to see what the experience was and how to have a conversation with people of color. It was really powerful. And so, like I said, there are other ways that courageous conversations can be had. And I would suggest investigating those two and supporting the Griot Theater. I invited him to be part of this conversation, and I'm not sure if he's here or not, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew, that there is another way, a theater company that is actually doing the work.
Whew, thank you so very much. Powerful program once again coming to you from Race Talk Revolution. I'm going to hand this over back to Lane. Again, Maurice and Larry, thank you so very much. Lane.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Larry and Maurice, just thank you so much. And I will send out people who are here and registered. I will be sending you that information in an email that Larry sent me with the Excel spreadsheet and the list of video resources. It is extensive. Larry, did you say that you put things in the chat already? Send me, please, what it is that you want me to also include there so that people can have that in their email about how to get involved with courageous.
I will cut and paste
please.
that info right now.
Okay, thank you, my dear. Folks, thank you so much. We have so many people who are here for the first time. Please do come back. We will be here next week. Our speaker will be, goodness gracious, our speaker will be, and I know her intimately, but I guess it's not on here. Okay, it's
Maria?
okay. Yes, thank you. Maria Reynat Fumarejo. And she is a longtime racial justice activist who is currently in Puerto Rico. Our topic will be from racialization to solidarity, moving beyond the illusion of separateness. Also keeping in mind that next Monday is Martin Luther King Day and the next day is the National Day of Racial Healing. We of course urge you to commemorate those events by promoting social and racial justice in whatever way that generates for you the experience of beloved community, whether that's volunteering, donating, connecting with people that don't look like you or live like you. And maybe that might mean starting your own courageous conversation, remembering that healing only happens in community. So let's continue to get connected. Gentlemen, thank you. We would love to hear so much more from you, and we will have you back for a continuation in this conversation.
Absolutely.
And we love you infinitely. Eugene?
I'm going to close by the quote that Lane has up here. And that is a quote by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. From us to you, peace and abundant blessings.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.